Hello again and welcome back to the Daily Rundown with me, Dan Morfitt. With me tonight is a barrister, a dad, an MBE and a Liverpool supporter. Make of that what you will. Zia Chaudry is also a former chair of the Merseyside Council of Faiths and the founder of the North West Forum of Faiths. On that, Zia started to write a book called Just Your Average Muslim, and it turned into something much, much bigger. Zia, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on tonight.
Not at all.
You're a Scouser, but originally from Burnley.
Born in Burnley, yeah.
Born in Burnley.
Moved to Liverpool when I was 7.
And born to Pakistani parents.
Yes.
But I think a big part of the book is that you're British.
Absolutely.
And quite happily so. What made you write this book, Just Your Average Muslim?
To be honest with you, Dan, when I was growing up, I knew that I'm the child of immigrants, and you knew that that's going to make life a little bit uncomfortable at times. And my dad's approach was, he never sat down and talked about integration with me. What he did say was, you need to study, you need to work hard, you need to get an education and be successful. And it was implicit that if you're successful, you'll be integrated. And so, having gone down the education path, having got a decent job, I found myself fairly well integrated and had not really had any discomfort as a Muslim. But then once I had kids, I thought, well, it might not be the same for them. You know, the world's very different now. And even though on the one hand, you'd expect them to be even more comfortable because they're entitled to say, well, hang on, not only were we born here, but our parents were born here. But I thought that it's not necessarily going to be as easy for them. So maybe if I can provide some guidance. And that's how the project really started.
And talking about your success, you have been massively successful going to the bar, becoming a barrister, you've talked to Cambridge University, you've been a speaker at many places, and you've been on the board and a founder member of lots of these groups that are trying to not necessarily show integration, but the fact that there's many faiths in an area.
I think being in Liverpool was instrumental in a lot of that because I went to a school where, you know, there were only a couple of Muslim kids in my year. Now contrast that with a lot of schools in Manchester, in Lancashire, Yorkshire, and it meant that I had to be more involved than perhaps I might have been elsewhere. And so I found it very comfortable growing up with English mates, and then in a profession where, you know, again, the people surrounding me were all non-Muslims. And then you think, well, hang on, I get on well with these people and they seem to appreciate me and maybe there's something more I can do with this getting on. And you start to realize that actually this is something that needs to be done because you can imagine I started work over 20 years ago and then you've got, you know, the Salman Rushdie affair, you've got 9/11, that kind of stuff that's suddenly thrusting Muslims into the headlines. So you think, well, maybe there's an opening there that needs to be taken of Muslims actually getting involved in society. And if I can say something to get people involved, then all the better. On
Islamophobia, has it come to a head now? Have we seen an increase in it? Or has it always been there? Did your father worry with, you know, being called, we know the words, and being singled out as a Muslim? Did he ever worry about that? Or has it just got worse now?
He wasn't singled out as a Muslim. He was singled out because he was a Pakistani. And so you can imagine the abuse was revolving around that. But in recent times, what's happened is that because of various events around the world and an increase in extremism and terrorism, you've suddenly found Islam and Muslims in the headlines. And the danger is that the depiction is one of two camps. You're either in this camp of the nice civilized people or you're with the crazy Muslims and you're going to have to choose. And my approach was, well, no, you know, I regard myself as being British, as being part of, you know, civilized, and I've got many issues with a lot of the extremists. So, you know, why should I pick? Surely I can happily coexist and have a foot in both the Muslim camp and you know, the Western non-Muslim camp. And that's really what I wanted to get across. Now, Islamophobia, I think for many people, it's just racism. I mean, there were, you know, and the sad thing is when you look at the likes of Donald Trump, unfortunately now, you know, you can have conversations which you couldn't have had before, and people are going to feel, bigots are going to feel emboldened because they're going to think, oh, well, it was political correctness that, you know, was you know, sort of, you know, keeping us on the leash before, but now because our political leaders are you know, saying this kind of thing, of course we're entitled to.
It gives the rest of the public carte blanche to say whatever they like.
Absolutely,
as well.
And that's the worry.
Do you think Muslims are the new Irish? Because for years, Irish people in the UK were vilified. You're a terrorist, you're a terrorist, you're a terrorist. The Good Friday Peace Accord happened, and then we had 9/11, and the West racists had a new bogeyman?
I think if you look throughout history, so many societies have needed a bogeyman. And just in my lifetime growing up, the communists and the threat from Russia, that in the 80s, that's what we were talking about, the 70s and 80s, and then it became militant Islam. And I've now heard Irish people themselves say that, look, we were in this position in the 70s when when there were signs outside shops stopping us from entering. And yes, Muslims are in that sense the new Irish, but the difference is that most Muslims do look different. Most Muslims, and this doesn't have to be the case, but most Muslims in Britain are brown skinned, have black hair, have certainly origins from other countries, and so even generations down the line, they're still going to be easily identifiable as different. Now, the Irish didn't have that problem. Jewish people don't have that problem. And so I think that's something that Muslims are going to have to contend with. But when you get more involved in society and people see you contributing, then they think, well, actually, and this is the sort of reaction I've had. People don't think of me as the Muslim bloke. They think of me as Zia, and Zia's all right to get on with. We have a laugh with him. And so when you break down those barriers and establish a rapport with people, suddenly life becomes a lot easier. And I think that with Muslims, one great example, in the last few months was when we had the floods in Cumbria. And you had so many Muslim charities where the guys just said, you know what, forget the media and trying to persuade people that we're actually all right. Let's just roll our sleeves up and do the work and help people out. And suddenly that was breaking down barriers left, right and centre. Yeah,
the great examples of, just truckloads of people going up to help from many societies and many areas of the country. But we didn't see the EDL and all those idiots going up to do the same relief. Let's have a look at the cover of your book now, because I know this is a new cover, Just Your Average Muslim. That's you as a 5-year-old kid.
It is.
That's absolutely lovely. Because I know that the previous cover of the book had you in your outfit for the bar, your lawyer's outfit, also in a Liverpool kit as well, and also ready for prayer.
Yeah, I mean, that was really us posing the question, well, what's a Muslim supposed to look like? Because the guy in the Liverpool kit, he's a Muslim. The guy wearing the barrister's outfit, he's a Muslim. And the guy who looks like the Muslim, obviously, but you don't have to look a particular way. And so some people, when I go along and I do talks, on interfaith subjects and about Islam, and sometimes you can almost see when you've walked in and they think, oh, we weren't expecting you. We were expecting, a big bushy beard, some flowing robes, and a turban, and suddenly you're sort of, already challenging our preconceptions.
And is that part of the reason for the book as well? I know part of it is your life story, but it is to challenge those preconceptions that people have.
Very much so, and not just for non-Muslims. I mean, the idea right from the off was this should be a book that has something useful to say to Muslims and non-Muslims. And so to non-Muslims, I'm saying obviously that there might be things that you don't know about us, and so here's a different take on things rather than just the media headlines. But to Muslims, I'm saying that, listen, if you think this current performance is good enough, you need to think again. In many respects, we've got to look at ourselves and say that, that we're not up to scratch. We need to improve our, our performance, and part of that is getting involved in society. So there are many questions that I ask of Muslims themselves, and a lot of them are religious questions. That look, you might have been doing things this way for a long time, but does it necessarily have to be that way? No, I don't challenge, the basic beliefs in believing in God and doing good and knowing that you're accountable, which we share with so many other religions. But a lot of the things that Muslims do nowadays do need to be looked at afresh.
And is a lot of it about education? Because, Muslim, the big scary word, but there's Shia, there's Sunni, there's Wahhabism, there's many different strains. It's like calling a Christian and not understanding if they're Catholic, Presbyterian, Methodist. There's so many different tranches. Is it getting into schools, getting into businesses, and telling people that Islam is a massive wide religion, and that of course there's going to be differences all around the world, and even here in the UK.
Absolutely, there are many differences here, and that's why really I set the scene by saying a bit about myself, not because I just think that people would be interested in my life, but because it's me laying my cards on the table and saying, look, I might have certain views that could be described as liberal or progressive, but this is my background. And so you've got to understand how I'm reaching this position, because others might not have had the advantages that I have. And for example, liberal is a word that you never really associate with Islam or Muslims. Now you do in other religions, you have the sort of liberal wings and the conservative wings, but unfortunately Muslims are either moderate or extremist.
Yeah. You're either a fundamentalist or nothing at all. I know part of your book as well, you look upon history and religion or science. Can there be both? Surely some of the greatest scholars of all time have been Muslim.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, Arabic numerals are called Arabic numerals for a reason. And I recently read a quote from somebody who said that if there'd been the Nobel Prize 1,000 years ago, it would have gone almost exclusively to Muslims, because 1,000 years ago they were the ones who were making all the advances and all the discoveries in science.
Isn't algebra? By the very name, people don't. They go, "What? It's algebra? It's
algorithm, algebra, alcohol."
Yeah.
Funnily enough, all the bizarre things is rooted in Arabic. But yeah, so the history, and again, the sad fact is that a lot of Muslims don't know this history. So one of the things that I've often spoken about is Muslim Spain 1,000 years ago, where if you look at Andalusia, look at Cordoba. Now, 1,000 years ago, Cordoba was the biggest city in the world. And it had public libraries and it had clean running water. And you think, well, look, this was a society that Muslims had contributed to and were really kind of, you know, working together with Muslims and Jews to create. Now, if we could do it 1,000 years ago, we can do it again now.
And the Moors of Spain held a massive empire over 2 continents as well.
Absolutely.
But it is just that thing of education. I think your book is part of that education. What's your plan for the next year with your book and with your career at the bar and with your family as well?
It's just to keep the plate spinning. That's if I can manage that, that's a great achievement. But doors, I mean, I don't think I'm doing anything great, but doors seem to appear in front of me and I just end up trying them and they open up. And that's really been the story of my life. And so we'll see which doors open up now. The book is leading to, you know, other opportunities, speaking opportunities, both here and abroad. So let's see where they go.
The book is Just Your Average Muslim by Zia Chaudry. If you want to find out more, you've got Twitter, haven't you?
Yes.
At JustYAMuslim.
Yeah.
And of course, buy the book. It's available in all good bookshops and on Amazon as well and other places online. So a real education and a really interesting story about an individual as well. And I can just update you. Adam, is it still 1-0 to Liverpool? Still 1-0 to Liverpool against Manchester United. Thought I'd let you know that. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Zia. Really appreciate that. Next, Ryan and Ashley will be back with their Something to Say in just a couple of minutes' time.